So this is the regularly scheduled Community Development Committee of the Metropolitan Council. I'm the Chair, Robert Lilligren. It's Monday, November 1st, 2021. Before calling the meeting to order, a few things. We're still, COVID-19 is still causing us to alter our usual procedures. The Metropolitan Council Chair has determined it's not practical nor prudent to conduct an in-person meeting at this time. So accordingly, we'll participate in this meeting by electronic means or phone. And the Community Development Committee meeting is conducted by WebEx. It's being recorded. Members of the public can monitor this meeting by going to the agenda at the Met Council website online and view the live stream there. The video is embedded right in the website. We'll do roll call as we know. Please only use the chat function for technical issues so that those listening in can hear the discussion. And if there's no questions about that, I will call this meeting to order and we will take attendance by roll call to ensure a quorum. And Michelle, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair Lilligren. I did receive advance notice that Councilmember Musse will not be attending today. So I will start with Chambliss, Cummings,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Lee,
Here.
Lilligren,
Here.
Lindstrom,
Here.
Bento,
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. We have a quorum, and I just left the same meeting as Councilmember Chambliss, and I know she's planning to be on, so I'm guessing she will join us
Thank you.
momentarily. The first item on our agenda is the agenda. The agenda has been posted at the website. Members, if there are no objections or changes to the agenda, we can move on to our business. Any objections or changes? Great, hearing none. Next item is our minutes from the October 18th regular Community Development Committee meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moves approval.
Thank you, thank you. Did you get those, Michelle?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Great, thanks. So we have the motion before us. Any discussion? Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Chambliss, Cummings,
Aye.
Johnson, Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Bento,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. That carries. And next on our agenda is our consent agenda. The three items on our consent agenda are items that staff has determined are routine and non-controversial for your consideration. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
Wolf moves approval.
Thanks, Councilmember. Is there a second?
Cummings seconds.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any discussion? Hearing none, Michelle, please call the roll on the consent agenda.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. I'll start with Cummings,
Aye.
Johnson, Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Bento,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. The consent agenda carries, and we'll move on to our business items. The first is business item 2021-270. It's a joint committees and same week item. It's City of Robbinsdale 2040 Comprehensive Plan and Comprehensive Sewer Plan. Michael Larson is here to present. Mr. Larson, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. Again, Michael Larson, Sector Representative for District 7 and Local Planning Assistance in the Community Development Division. Before you today is the review of the City of Robbinsdale's 2040 Comprehensive Plan. Next slide, please. Figure 1 in the staff report shown here, it shows the location of existing regional system components within the City of Robbinsdale. There are 3 regional trails in the city, 1 regional highway. and 3 regional sewer interceptors, which convey wastewater to the treatment plant in St. Paul. Robbinsdale will also be served, as you know, by the Metro Blue Line extension, the revised alignment for which is now under consideration and likely to be County Road 81 rather than the BNSF railroad corridor that is shown on this map. Next slide, please. Figure 2 from the staff report shown here identifies the city as an urban center community designation and consistent, which is consistent with Thrive MSP 2040. Robbinsdale is located in the eastern part of Hennepin County, surrounded by the communities of Brooklyn Center, Minneapolis, and Crystal, and Golden Valley as well. Next slide, please. As shown in table 1 of the staff report, the plan includes a revised forecast and discusses demand and conditions for higher density residential development associated with transit-oriented development. The city and council staff agreed on the population and employment numbers early in the planning process. Since then, employment has fallen short of expectations due to the 2020 recession. However, council staff will honor that agreement for the revision. The revised forecasts are shown in table 1 with changes. The city is forecasted to reach 72 households by 2040. Next slide, please. Table 2 from the staff report shown here illustrates the planned residential density in the city. The overall density for guided residential land identified in the plan is expected to be between 35.1 and 57.8 units per acre. Communities with an urban center designations under Thrive are expected to plan for forecasted population and household growth and overall minimum densities of 20 units per acre for new development and redevelopment, and Robbinsdale's comprehensive plan is consistent with this policy. Next slide, please. Figure 3 in your staff report shows that the city is a fully developed community. Approximately 65% of the city is residential. The city has a traditional main street downtown along West Broadway Avenue, where there is a mix of commercial and higher density residential. Robbinsdale is home to North Memorial Health Hospital, which is by far the largest employer in the city. Next slide, please. Figure 4 in your staff report shows the city's 2040 planned land use map and their comprehensive plan. The plan identifies areas with redevelopment potential, and those are primarily located along a linear corridor in the downtown area along West Broadway, as well as Botanic Boulevard. Because of the small city size, most of the focus for redevelopment is proximate to its future Metro Blue Line station. The plan recognizes and conforms to the minimum densities established in the Transportation Policy Plan for station areas. As with other communities along the Metro Blue Line extension, the city participated in developing the Robbinsdale Light Rail Station Area Plan, which was completed in July of 2016 and is incorporated into the comprehensive plan as Appendix A, as well as summarized earlier in the body of the plan. And as you know, the council is exploring alternative alignments to the BNSF corridor for the Metro Blue Line. In Robbinsdale, this is likely again to be County Road 81, which is approximately a quarter mile to the east. The goal is to identify a route option by the end of this year, including new station locations. And at that time, revised environmental review and engineering work would begin. Despite this potential shift in station location, most of the areas that the plan identifies for redevelopment that the plan identifies for the redevelopment and intensification would remain proximate to the new station location. There are 2 under consideration. Next slide, please. Staff find that the proposed plan conforms to regional system plans, is consistent with council policies with the proposed forecast changes, and is compatible with the plans of adjacent and affected jurisdictions. Next slide, please. The proposed action for you today is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the City of Robbinsdale to place its 2040 comprehensive plan into effect. 2, to revise the city's forecast upward as shown in Table 1 of the attached review record. And 3, to revise the city's affordable housing need allocation for 2021 to 2030 to 101 units. Next slide, please. Next week on Tuesday, November 9th, Environmental Services staff will present to the Environmental Committee. And as the chair mentioned at the beginning, this is the same week item primarily due to the cancellation of a meeting associated with the Thanksgiving holiday. So this will be held. This will be on the council's agenda the following day on Wednesday, November 10th. Next slide, and that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Larson, for your report and for your work on this. Committee members, any questions for Mr. Larson on that report? Any questions? Hearing none, Mr. Larson has proposed a series of actions to authorize the City of Robbinsdale to place its 2040 comprehensive plan into effect. Is there a motion to approve, please?
Wolf moves approval.
Thank you.
Johnson seconds.
Thank you, council members. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion.
Just that council member Chambliss is on the line.
Thanks for joining us, Councilmember Chambliss. Long time no see. Hearing no discussion on the motion, Michelle, please call the roll.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That motion carries. Thanks, Michelle. And we'll move on to our next business item, 2021-295. It's the City of Ramsey Linwood Subdivision Comprehensive Plan Review. And Eric Wycheck is here to present. Welcome, Mr. Wycheck.
Hello, hello, Chair Lilligren. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you, and thank you, committee members. My name is Eric Wycheck. I'm a planning analyst and local planning assistant. So I'm here to present you with the Linwood Subdivision Comprehensive Plan Amendment for the City of Ramsey in District 9 in Anoka County. I just wanted to say that this is the first amendment since the comprehensive plan was authorized and adopted by the city. Next slide, please. You can see from this figure 2 in the report, that Thrive MSP 2040 gives the City of Ramsey a community designation of emerging suburban edge. The area affected by the amendment is shown in red here. The location is north of Bunker Lake Boulevard Northwest and west of Armstrong Boulevard Northwest. Next slide, please. This slide shows the location in a little bit more detail in that inset map, but it also shows, consistent with figure 1 in your staff report, the regional systems in relation to the amendment site. Next slide, please. Now this amendment, I know there's a lot of text on this slide. I'll try to explain this one. This amendment proposes to re-guide 27.5 acres from high-density residential to medium-density residential land use. And the purpose of the amendment is to accommodate attached townhomes in the central and southeastern portions and detached single-family homes in the northwest portion of the site, totaling 133 units. Next slide, please. This slide, also shown on figure 3 in your staff report, shows the existing land use in this location. This was the adopted land use in the 2040 plan, which was high density residential, which allows a density range of between 8 and 15 dwelling units per acre within that land use. Next slide, please. As shown also in figure 3 of your staff report, the amendment will re-guide the 27.5 acres from high density residential to medium density residential with a density range of between 4 and 8 dwelling units per acre. Next slide, please. Table 1 from the staff report shown here illustrates the impact of the amendment on the planned residential density for the City of Ramsey. The amendment results in a slight decrease of the overall density of the city from 3.2 units per acre, which was the adopted which was the density within the adopted 2040 plan, to 3.1 units per acre. So it's gone down just a little bit. And just to let you know, this amendment is before you today because there is a housing inconsistency within the housing policy inconsistency. And I wanted to anticipate questions about that. So there will be some comments you'll see coming in a future slide, but I just wanted to let you know that the city has been part of the Livable Communities Act program for a number of years, and I think they've received between 12 and 13 grants since 1999, the most recent one being in 2019. So just wanted to let you all know that the City of Ramsey's been pretty successful in the LCA program to date. Next slide, please. So council staff find that the proposed amendment conforms to regional systems plans, is inconsistent with the housing policy plan, however, is consistent with other council policies, and the amendment is compatible with the plans of adjacent and affected jurisdictions. Next slide, please. Council staff proposed that the Metropolitan Council authorize the City of Ramsey to place this comprehensive plan amendment into effect, find that the amendment does not change the city's forecasts, find that the amendment renders the city's comprehensive plan inconsistent with the council's housing policy, and that the city is therefore considered not in good standing for the purposes of the Livable Communities Act programs. Council staff also advise that the city to be consistent with the council housing policy, the city needs to re-guide additional acres expected to develop in the 2021 to 2030 decade to a land use with a minimum density of 8 units per acre, or raise the minimum density of an existing land use to 8 units per acre to accommodate a minimum of 233 additional units. And then finally, to implement the advisory comments in the review record for land use and housing. And I should mention too that this amendment will be going to the Met Council meeting on November 10th, 2021. Next slide, please. Happy to take any questions you might have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Wycheck. Questions on that report? Any questions? Hearing on, Mr. Wycheck proposes a series of 5 actions to authorize the City of Ramsey to place its comprehensive plan amendment into effect. Is there a motion to approve, please?
Move by Lee.
Thank you, Councilmember. Is there a second?
Wolf seconds.
Thank you, Councilmembers. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion. Hearing none, Michelle, please call the roll on the motion.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. That motion carries. Mr. Wycheck, thanks for being here. And we will move on to our final business item for the evening. That's item 2021-308. It's payment standards for Metro HRA rent assistance programs. And Terry Smith is here to present with her team. Ms. Smith, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for having me today. We had some good discussion on this item 2 weeks ago, and an information item, and help provide me with some direction on what to come back with for action today. So this is the action item that follows up the information item from a few weeks ago. Next slide, please. So as a review, once again, payment standards are rent limits. They are used in the administration of the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher and other rent assistance programs. And it's really the shopping amount that families have when they're out shopping for a rental unit with which to use their voucher. The payment standards are limited by the fair market rents that are issued by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development each year, and housing authorities have some discretion within those fair market rents and adopt payment standards between 90 and 110% of those fair market rents to allow for some local adjustments for local market conditions. But the goal is always to adopt payment standards that are high enough to allow for choice around the region for voucher holders, but then low enough to serve as many families as possible. As you likely recall, the council adopted what's called small area fair market rents, and they were implemented in July of 2020. And those are rent limits based on zip code at the zip code level instead of one rate for the entire metropolitan region. Next slide, please. So the council policy documents provide some direction to us as we're setting these payment standards, but Thrive states that the council will offer housing options that give people in all life stages viable choices for stable housing, and that the council will develop and provide tools, including competitive rent limits and higher cost communities to enable Section 8 housing choice voucher holders to choose a location that best meets their needs. And then the council also has adopted a housing goal that states that the desire to become a region with a broader housing spectrum where all people can thrive. Next slide, please. So at our October 18th Community Development Committee meeting, I brought an information item and shared some information with you all, including a series of maps that showed that the adoption of small area fair market rents has increased the number of voucher holders living in higher rent areas, which was certainly one of the goals of adopting small area fair market rents. Joel Hudding, the research manager, shared with us that rents continue to rise faster than inflation, that vacancy rates remain very low, lower than the optimal level, that current voucher holders are rent burdened, meaning 48% of them are currently paying more than 30% of their income towards rent, which is a higher percentage than we like to see. And that the current payment standards, many of them are outside of the required range. So that range between 90 and 110% of the fair market rent. Next slide, please. You've seen this slide numerous times, and but this is sort of showing the balance of what we're working with. But again, HUD gives us a pot of money, grants us some money. This year we just used a 70 million for a round dollar amount. I think we got 72.5 million this year, but HUD pretty much says, here's your money. Now go out and serve as many households as you can, up to 6,894, which is the number of vouchers that we have. I think Council Member Chambliss indicated that we're trying to find the sweet spot here, and that's exactly right, where we're trying to balance having high enough payment standards to ensure voucher holders can be successful in placing their voucher, but then low enough to serve as many families as possible. Next slide, please. I reviewed 3 options with you on the 18th of October. Option 1 was to make minimal changes to bring the payment standards into the required range. So there were 80 zip codes that we are required in most cases to increase the payment standards to reach the 90% limit. I think there were 3 that we would have needed to decrease to become a max of 110%. But after a lot of review under that option, we determined that the rent burden to existing families would remain above the current range, and the payment standards would not have been high enough to ensure voucher success. Option 2 was a series of changes that were presented to you all that were more in line with market and average rents, and some localized knowledge of the rental market. And then option 3 was to adjust all of the payment standards to 100% of the new small area fair market rents that were just issued. Option 3 had the largest price tag, would have cost us about $3.4 million to implement, and could have potentially impacted a reduction in service to 410 families, depending on where the federal budget came in for next year. Next slide, please. Option 2 seemed to be the option that had council member support. At least all the council members that commented supported this option. And this is what the action item today is representing, this option 2, adopting new small area fair market rents with payment standards between 95% and 99% of the new small area fair market rents. Again, this increases the payment standards in 100 zip codes and slight decreases in 24 zip codes that would impact 34 families. In terms of the impact to existing families, the reduction in payment standards are not implemented until the second year after adoption. And so those families would not see any decrease in payment standards until 2 years from now. And many times what happens in a situation like that is next year when we review payment standards again, they may come up in those zip codes and these families may never see the decrease in the payment standard in those areas. And those are mostly rural areas on the outer edges of the region. In terms of tenant impact, we talked about our current rent burden of the total voucher population is 48%. So that means 48% of current voucher holders are paying more than 30% of their income towards rent. Our goal is to have that, and sort of the HUD guideline and industry standard is to have that number be below 40%. And so making these changes to the small area fair market rents will result in a future rent burden of 36% or maybe even less. This makes assumptions that, and it's based on all the rents that current participants are paying and what the rent is for the unit, that nobody moves and that nobody's income changes. And we know none of those things will be the reality, but this is the best information that we have to do that analysis. And that's within the goal range. In terms of implementing this option, it will cost about $2.2 million extra. And again, that assumes that nobody's rent changes, nobody moves, nobody's income changes. And we know that's not going to be the case, but that's sort of the worst case scenario. If the federal funding is not increased by 2.2 million or whatever that magic number is for the 2022 budget, it could result in the reduction in service of up to 190 families. We're hopeful that the budget will be enough to sustain service to all additional families. Again, that's a worst case scenario. But this option seemed to be most in line with where market rents are. So we sort of tweaked the zip codes where we're seeing a little bit higher rents versus a little bit lower rents around the region to sort of try to find that sweet spot. And we think this option supports that. Next slide, please. So our next steps are, if you approve this tonight, we will go to the full council on November 10th for action. And then these will be implemented February and March of 2022. So it will give our staff, we implement based on sort of the recertification month that they're working on now. So it would probably be implemented for February 1st for new move-ins and then March 1st for existing voucher holders. And the action before you again, Mr. Chair and council members, is that the council adopt payment standards as shown in table 1 of the business item for the housing choice voucher and other rent assistance programs effective January 1st, 2022. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith, and thanks to your team for this work and also for the supportive way that you've teed up this conversation. Lots of dynamics here, as Councilmember Chambliss says, looking for that sweet spot. And I really want to thank you for your work. Questions on this report? Questions? And Ms. Smith, I think the fact that there aren't a bunch of questions is really testament to you and your team's excellent work here. So thank you very much. And seeing no questions, Ms. Smith proposes that the Metropolitan Council adopt payment standards as shown in Table 1 for the Housing Choice Voucher and other rent assistance programs effective January 1st, 2022. Is there a motion to approve, please?
Bento moves approval.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Lindstrom seconds.
Thank you, Councilmember. And any discussion on the motion? Councilmember Bento.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can only say that I'm not a gambler, but I'm too cheap to gamble. But this is the time when you almost feel like you're standing at a gambling table, but you're playing with mysterious money and you don't know how it's all going to shake down out in the end. And as nervous as it makes me, I am confident based on the great work that our staff is doing, and I can only imagine that this is much more of a concern for them in terms of how does this all shake down. And I think that what we're doing today, the work we're doing, the data we're using, as well as the needs that we are addressing, which is the most important part of this, is an example of how important federal aid is and how important the bill that Congress is struggling to come to terms with is. Yesterday I heard, and I won't identify by name because I don't want it to sound like I'm getting political, but I heard a prominent member of the House who has a great deal of influence on housing talking about the importance of the need for more funding in the housing area. And if I could have hugged her at that time, I would have. I mean, it was just spot on. And I do know for a fact that she works day in, day out addressing it, and that it's not just an add-on in a campaign speech, although she's not running for anything currently. And it's not an attempt to try and sway things. She's speaking to reality. And I think by what we're doing here today, we're speaking to reality as well. So thank you to the staff. I'm glad to support this.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I just note, I thought the presentation from staff, from Terry and her team on the impacts of adopting the small area fair market rents was really instructive. And it's really only a short amount, excuse me, of time on the data, but it showed that we were having the impact that we, excuse me, hoped it would. Any further discussion on the motion? Yeah, Councilmember Chambliss.
Yes, I agree with both council members on what they said. You know, we have great resources at the Metropolitan Council staff that are able to take the technology that they have and incorporate the interests and the concerns of the council members as policymakers in their presentations so that we can make the best decisions that we can as policymakers with our goal to serve as many families as possible. That's why I'm voting for option number 2.
Thank you, Councilmember. Further discussion, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll echo what everyone else has said. And again, Terry, to you and your team, you know, this is really hard work you're doing. You know that, you live it every day. You know, it's still just a testament to how broken the system is, but thank goodness for the money that we've got that comes in and the expertise that we have at the Met Council so that we can get it out as fast as possible to as many families as possible, knowing that many more deserving families are still in the wings waiting. And, you know, it's just a struggle. So it does feel good when you hear members of Congress or at the state level or certainly local level stepping up and talking about this issue, because we all know it's not getting better, it's getting worse. So I'm just proud of the work that we're doing at the Met Council. And my heart goes out to all those people who get the help, and my heart goes out even more so to the people who are still waiting, and we're not going to give up on them either. So thanks for your hard work, Terry and team. Great job.
Thank you, Councilmember Wilson. Further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion? Great. Hearing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. That motion carries. And that is the final item on our agenda. I would just ask Michelle or Director Rojas if they have anything further for us.
I do not. Thank you, Chair Lilligren.
Thank you, Michelle.
Chair Lilligren, I also don't have anything else. You moved through our agenda in record time.
It's efficiency in government here in the CDC. Great. Well, seeing no further business before this committee, we're adjourned. And enjoy the time, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good week.
Thank you.